So today I'm going to talk about my experience with Kundalini awakening. And this experience for me was quite extreme. It wasn't like a one-time thing. It kind of culminated and exploded as a one-time thing and then continued for years and is still operating. I want to share this because when I was going through the hardest part of it, I had no reference besides a book by Gopi Krishna and some anecdotes by a teacher named Adyashanti, who alluded to some of his own experiences but didn't really go into them. So 10 years ago, I had cancer and I had two 9-hour surgeries to remove the cancer and the lymph nodes. And when I came back from those surgeries, I was seeing auras and energy, and I wouldn't have known to call it at the time, but deep states of samadhi. I would just spontaneously be in deep meditation and totally absorbed in the moment, and I was in just this state of perfect ease. And considering the conditions at the time, I was in law school and having all of these radiation and stuff, people around me were like, that's interesting. You know, she doesn't seem to be very bothered by anything. And, you know, it was true. I was just totally at ease. So when, after the surgeries were over, I moved to Brazil. And when I got to Brazil, I was completely unable to fall asleep. So I tried. I was in law school in Brazil, and I was worried that, well, if I don't sleep, I will not pass the class. I won't be able to function. I just didn't fall asleep, and to be honest, I haven't really slept ever since. I've learned that the only thing that really needs to rest is the mind, and so I have been able to rest. And I feel I have a lot of energy, and we really don't need that much sleep. But I tried taking lots of medication and just it wouldn't budge. I just wouldn't fall asleep. My body was so full of heat and adrenaline and, you know, all sorts of stress hormones, and my body was unable to relax. But at the same time, I started really putting my foot down. I was in a position socially where I was expected to show face, I was expected to show up, socialize, and I just started saying absolutely not. Like, I am not in a place that I'm able to do this. I have no desire to do this. And while that caused a lot of friction in my life, it ultimately freed me into where I am now, right? Unfortunately, I had just spent quite a bit of money on a wedding, but it's okay. It doesn't really matter. So I was having this awakening of respecting myself, but at the same time, my emotions were getting more and more aggravated and intense and amplified. And Kundalini, it takes something that, if you normally register fear at a 5 out of 10, Kundalini amplifies it so that you feel it as like a million, because what it's trying to do is amplify something so that you can no longer escape it, so that the self that's not ultimately real can lose its illusion of control and no longer avoid reality, which could be in the form of an emotion that's arising right now. So it squeegees the fear out of you. It squeegees out of you any sense of being separate from life. Almost, it feels like by force, because it's very accelerated and it's very physiologically taxing at times. At least it was for me. It might not be for everybody. So I was seeing all this energy, and a few years into this, I was walking outside, and right before this event that I'm about to describe, I noticed that I had started seeing other kinds of energy, like a blue light body that kind of looks like Gumby without a face. I would see that flying out of my then partner when he was asleep. I started going out of my body all the time. I started interacting with deceased, and soon after that, I was walking outside by the ocean, and all of a sudden I felt this explosive bliss, and what it felt like literal nectar, like a golden light, a liquid light that poured in through the top of my head and exploded out of my heart. And I realized my eternal nature. I felt myself as many things at once, as a ball of light. Like, presence is different from awareness, and I might do another video about that. Presence is more like a form that has like fuller qualities than pure awareness. The way I translated it was it almost has a song. I heard the music of the spheres. I heard kind of like music coming from the plants. Like, I felt myself to be the whole universe, but also this ball of light, but also awareness, and also love, and that everything was myself. And that bliss like made music. There was like a mathematics and a music to it that is hard to describe. A blackbird landed on my head 3 days in a row, and the same guy was walking behind me all 3 days, and he was like really spooked. He was like, what the heck is going on with you? I walked over to the seawall, and all of those 3 days as well, the same dolphin, who wasn't like hurt or anything, was waiting there for me and was like communicating with me telepathically. All of a sudden, a spiritual text and esoteric knowledge that I hadn't quite grasped yet intellectually, all of a sudden made perfect sense to me. You know, it's like the information that you can receive at once and understand at once can be a lot. And all of a sudden the Tao Te Ching like kind of just kept reciting itself in my mind. And then I went to my apartment. One thing I noticed was like I could not find flaws in anything. And I talk about this in other videos, how while spiritual vision sees no flaws, makes no judgments, it doesn't have a position against anything. You know, your ability to read and discern energy and acknowledge what to avoid in an obvious way, that doesn't disappear. But what I noticed, like, for example, I would play some music like a reggaeton, which I don't enjoy, and I enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed things that I didn't usually enjoy, and it was just like so amazing to me. I would like hold a highlighter and I'd be like totally in shock about, in wonder and awe about it and how beautiful it was. I went back to my apartment, and I stood in my apartment in a white room, and I'm standing in the white room, and all of a sudden it turns pink. And all of a sudden I started hearing 9 Inch Nails, which was music that I had heard, that I listened to when I was a teenager. And so what was happening was my red room from 16 years old and my white room from this apartment were merging together, and I could actually hear thoughts that my 16-year-old mind was thinking in another moment in time. Like, time collapsed and overlapped, like moments overlapped. And what I understood in that moment was like every moment is eternal, right? There's only one moment, but even what the mind would call temporary form is actually eternal. And people who have had near-death experiences say similar things, where they say when they leave their bodies, they realize that, or they learn that they could actually live the same life in the same body and just make like one different choice. So the nature of reality is complex and epic, and maybe on another day I could speak about that. But so I was in this mystical state of no mind, but when it kind of settled down, I felt myself as up and back here. So I was identified as awareness. The first explosion, I had the full understanding, right? there's just me, there's just love, intelligence, and it was somatic. I felt myself as intelligence and as love and as light and as everything. There was no boundary. There was still a consciousness to register the experience, right? The experiencer never disappears, right? Anybody who can speak about these things, it registered somewhere, right? That's for a different day. But I was still identified as awareness. So there was still observer and observed. There was still awareness, watching the mind, watching the body. My body felt like a foreign object. It kind of felt like a car. And for a couple of years, I was in that state, and it was very mystical, and it was very joyful. And then I moved to Peru, and one day I literally felt like I was being squeezed through a vice, or like a womb. I literally felt everything being squeezed. And then all of a sudden, that duality of awareness and form, of observer and observed, collapsed. And there was just pure experience. But at the same time, Kundalini started drilling, whipping through my chakras and loosening, opening, and emptying psychological content that was within my psyche. And that was intense. That was physically and somatically, and it was intense. I could not walk or function or lift my head off of a pillow for 5 months because I was so dizzy. I couldn't take care of my dog. All I would see in my mind all day long was a loop of myself dying horrible deaths. Past life energy would come up, and I would feel like when the energy moved through my throat chakra, I would feel a hand, like a physical hand, choking me. I felt that for like a month or two, almost constantly. When I was in Peru, I was sitting in the living room speaking to my then in-laws, and it was 2:00 in the afternoon. We had just had lunch, and I was sober. I don't drink or do anything like that. I was just there, and all of a sudden my consciousness went, it got sucked out of the scene, and I was like behind it, and I was looking into the scene, and the scene like form looks like a gel or a plasma, and it's programmable by our understanding. We infuse it with our understanding of it, and on a quantum level, that's how our expectations affect our experience. We create our experience. We program the form. And so I looked to my left, and I saw this darkness and a hallway of golden light. I did not go into the light, and I don't know what it was. A friend of mine who has read the Don Juan books said that Don Juan talks about it. I don't know what it was. I could still hear the people talking, but it was muffled, and it looked like I was looking into a fish tank. It was like a bluish substance. So then just kind of automatically I came back. And that experience, which was pretty interesting, it taught me something about that we press ourselves into form, and that's part of what I teach. In order to transmute form, right, in order to manifest your spirit, you have to put your spirit into the form. There can't be me spirit or me awareness and my body and my life and my conditioning. That's why I love to talk about how observing is not enough. Observing is not enough. Feeling, merging with, so that you are no longer separate with. Adding love to emotional energy changes the energy, and it like loosens it up, and it disperses. So I went through months of being unable to function at all. I had a lot of symptoms that mimicked neuropathy. So there's something called acid rain, and it feels like hot nerves kind of raining down all the way to your finger. Very hot and very painful. And again, I'm not a doctor. Please check if you're worried about being sick or anything. All I can say from my experience is that all of these things disappeared, and I went to the doctor and there was nothing there. So I had the acid rain. I had really weird rashes appear on my arms and legs. My hand chakras opened, and when I meditate and I put my hands on my legs, it burns my legs. And I'll show a photo of that because I think it's important to demonstrate, like, not just theoretically, like, yes, everything is energy. Yes, we are channels of intense energy. It's real. I had pains in my organs. I had every kind of digestive problem because specifically in my second chakra was very shut down. You know, that's like where your inner child is, and that was like a very frozen place in me. And so when that Pandora's box opened, a lot of content came out, and my digestive system kind of went all over the place from one extreme to the other. My lymph nodes would get huge and then go back to normal. And again, I would go to the doctor and check that, and they'd say, no, it's nothing. You're fine. Just go home. I have a lot of electricity in my brain and in my eyeballs. You might notice in some of my videos that my eyes go like this because I have a lot of... My brain feels like an electric fence. It's like an amped up electric fence. And my nerves and my skin and everything, it just feels very amped up and very electric and just like... And so physically, you know, I had my hands and feet turn black and blue. I would be driving and all of a sudden, like my mental body would disappear, and then all of a sudden come back, and I would like feel it like going and coming and going and coming. I would feel fireballs of energy rising out of my lower chakras and ballooning and going up, and all of a sudden my head would feel like the size of like a planet, and it would be really hot, and I would be like out in public, like almost, I was like, am I drooling? Because I felt almost like I'd had a seizure or something. A lot of times, you know, stuff like that, extreme energy experiences would happen at kind of inconvenient times, like when I'm driving, when I'm at the grocery store, when I'm having lunch with someone. I would feel so open and expanded that it was hard to pretend like I was comfortable. So I actually told my friends, I explained to them what was happening, and thankfully I have amazing friends, and they were like, it's okay, like, don't worry. I was like, okay, thank you. But part of that inconvenient thing is like Kundalini is like, it's almost like the goal is that you're in a baseline of trust and complete absence of fear, no matter what. You could have, you know, a nuclear explosion happening in your brain, and it's okay. No problem. It's okay. I would hear literal like fragments of my mind screaming, and it would feel like you open the hatchet of a spaceship and then they would get sucked out. I started communicating with extraterrestrials, which I wasn't looking for. I always knew they existed, but I thought it was kind of like a new age distraction. You know, I didn't think it was important, but they just kept showing up over and over and over in my room. Pleiadians putting vibrations in my skull. They send their tunnels of light into my room, and they're just these cold, bright tunnels of light. Portals open up in the sky. You know, I was in Asheville, I saw one there. I've seen them on the trails in Sedona. they're just appearing all the time and communicating, and I know that part of me desires to work with them. Otherwise, I don't know why they'd be showing up so much. But so that was not something that I was expecting. My physical vision, so the way I see physical reality is that it's like a light matrix. It's like a sparkly light matrix. It's like this fluid, undulating, moving thing, and I see bleed-throughs a lot. Like I'll see like the structure of the matrix. I'll see light beings, not ETs, but like the way that I see a lot of my guides and a lot of other kinds of beings is like it's almost like fireworks, like like really, like I'll just be sitting here like this, and all of a sudden I'll be like it'll be like a big pink firework right in front of my face. Sometime when I was in Peru and I was in my yoga teacher training, there was a guy there having sexual thoughts about me, and I saw his astral body try to merge with my astral body when I was in my own apartment. And you just start I started seeing like all these dimensions and all of this. That's why I talk about awareness and discernment, because there's so much going on that we're picking up on so much. And so I teach people not to identify with all those things, to not allow yourself to be bombarded or overwhelmed by all of the information in the universe, but to have some kind of insight as to discern it all, I think is helpful. At least it was helpful for me. And in terms of the sexual energy thing, I mean, I'll talk about that another day, but I learned how unbelievably sacred sexual energy is, and how, at least for me in my experience, I can't tell anybody how to move through life, and I don't have any judgment about what anybody does, but what I will share my energy with on any level is like, the standards are just really high now, or I should say me, because when you merge with somebody energetically, their psyche becomes entangled with you, and then so you want to be very deliberate about what you allow into your life. Physically, I would have nosebleeds. I would have random eye infections. As the energy, we have all these nadis, these little channels, and we have the chakra system where there are psychological blocks, I guess you could say, but we also have like blocks in all these little tiny channels. I would feel sometimes like it felt like a needle or a sword going straight through my ear or up my nose. It was like I was being pierced by some energetic sword. And what that is like these little channels are being cleared. So the bottom line here is that I thought I was going to die a million times. I mean, this was intense for me. And what I learned was, basically, what I unlearned was fear. I have no fear of death because I know what I am. The spiritual energy has healed my body, and that's why I teach people to bring it into the body. You do not have to have a Kundalini awakening to bring spirit into your body. Bringing spirit into your body is your birthright. But a lot of spiritual teachings, at least the way I interpreted them, was that they kind of left some stuff out. Like, okay, so there's pure awareness and pure consciousness. Okay, but you're also that manifesting as form. And my experience of the spiritual energy touching the form, right, in the example of that gel experience I had, your consciousness coming into the gel, coming in to the forms, the psychological, energetic, emotional, and physical forms, heals the energy, because when your spirit, which knows its wholeness, makes contact with a part of you that doesn't know its wholeness, like could be a wounded child in your second chakra. That child will always believe it's separate and live in fear until it is touched with love. So you never die. There's no such thing as death. You are intelligence, light, love. But you're here right now. You're here right now, and enjoy it. Enjoy it. Don't use spirituality to try to leave this experience. Bring your spirit into this experience. This is what I am most passionate about teaching, because I don't believe in struggle. You know, nothing in nature struggles. It's only human conditioning that values struggle. And a lot of spiritual teachings are transcendent, and, you know, especially Indian teachings. India has always kind of been, you know, it's been in a state of squalor for a while. And so the idea of transcendence, of leaving the world, is attractive. But I kind of take the approach of coming into the world, and, you know, you hear things like you don't leave the world by death, but by truth. Yeah, that's true, but leaving the world to me just means leaving the world of fear, leaving resistance. The world is a beautiful place. The body is a beautiful miracle. The mind is a beautiful tool. The human experience is a beautiful experience. And actually, when your spirit is pressed into the experience, it is as mystical as any of those other things that I mentioned, because your spiritual vision, your spirit will open your chakras, will open your hand chakras, will open your healing energy, will perhaps alter your perception a bit so that you can see the fluidity. And even if you don't, that's not the goal, but that's my experience. And I imagine, because everybody is intelligence, and love, and nuclear energy. Another thing that I learned is that the energy of life, us, we are life. Life is nuclear. When I was on that walk outside, my internal teacher, my higher self, which my beautiful friend told me that the higher self is the perfected soul, it was teaching me about resistance. And I remember walking and my ankle hurt, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down. So I sat down. As soon as I sat down, boom, like this explosion of energy, I just got right back up, and the pain disappeared. And what that taught me was like, wow, this energy is nuclear. Our true nature is nuclear. The body is amazing because it can withstand amazing amounts of resistance. The power of non-resistance is so incredibly healing. How do you resist your life every day? How do you push your body around? How do you do things that you don't want to do? When you stop doing all that, when you really tune into reality, that nuclear energy just starts exploding through you. And I'll share more about this, more about my psychological awakening, more about how Rohan helped me, and what I learned and why I'm so passionate about this. I had very hardcore disassociation. I was a very fragmented person. I did not have a strong sense of self. And Kundalini brought those fragments of my fractured self back together, which is another thing that I love to teach. And that helps you get back into your body, and it helps you direct your creative energy with intelligence. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a beautiful day.